Hey everybody, so let's take a look at some settings for Zoom. This is the September 14th, 2020 update. Whatever I'm saying today, it takes precedence over whatever I've said before. All right, so there are a couple of things in Zoom. First off, when you set your meeting here under meetings, these settings actually override what's in your settings. So we're going to talk about these first. When you schedule a meeting, what I recommend when you're setting up your class is you set up this class by topic. Your topic does actually show up in the waiting room, so whatever you've got here is what it will show there. So if you put in here, my class, first block, and you give it a description here, this will show up on your meeting. So please make sure your name matches my roster. That shouldn't be a problem, but it's not always a good idea to have that in there. So the second thing is, because when we go back face to face, our times are going to change. What I've been recommending to everybody is when you make this a recurring meeting, rather than leaving this as a daily recurrence, set it to no fixed time. That way you can start and stop the meeting at any time. It doesn't show up on your reminder list when you do it this way. But my recommendation for that is to take this, put it in your Schoology classroom, and you just always start the meeting straight from your Schoology classroom. All right, so a couple of things here. You do have to have the passcode on, so you don't have an option there. You can turn on the waiting room and override it here, but you definitely want that on for classroom instruction. If you're hosting a faculty meeting and you're sending this meeting out by email, probably not so important to have the waiting room on for those things, especially if you're controlling who has access to the linked URL. We have had reports that students are sharing the URLs on social media and saying, hey, come Zoom bomb my class. So that should be taken care of now with some of the other settings we have, but definitely leave the waiting room on for your classroom instruction. You can make a choice whether to start the video for the host and for the participants. The default, we've set these to off, so if you want to leave them off, that's okay. Just know that when you or your students go into the meeting, you're going to have to manually turn your video on. Audio, leave it on for both. The meeting options, you definitely don't want enable join before host for student instruction. Mute participants on entry is a good thing. Only authenticated users can join for classroom instruction. You definitely want that if you're setting this meeting up for an IEP meeting or faculty meeting, so you can allow it to be open so people can join from their phones and stuff like that. You might want to consider turning it off for that. But that's, again, one of those security things. It's kind of like classroom management. You just need to be aware of, but you should definitely set it here. Don't make any changes to this secure classroom or the who's in that secure classroom. Add watermark. This will actually show who's, it will give a watermark over the videos. You can pre-assign your breakout rooms and automatically record meeting in the cloud. We have asked that you, alert the students before you turn that on, so you don't want to turn this on here. So when you're ready to record, use the record button from within your meeting. Alternative hosts, if you have a co-teacher or a TA in your class, you can add them as alternative hosts. One of our suggestions also has been that if you have a trusted student in your class, you might want to make them a co-host. That way, if the teacher gets kicked, you've got somebody in there acting as host. Otherwise, Zoom will randomly assign somebody in the room to be host. So just as kind of a security measure so that it's not the Wild West in your classroom, if something happens, your Wi-Fi goes out and you get kicked out of the Zoom meeting. As the host, if you get kicked out and come back into the meeting, you all automatically have host responsibilities and rights when you come back into the meeting. But just as a temporary measure, have a trusted student if you don't have a TA or a co-teacher in your class with you. So when I go ahead and click save, that's going to save the settings for this meeting. Now keep in mind that there are a lot of settings that get pulled in from your settings tab right down here that will go into effect when you actually start the meeting. But whatever you've set here, those couple of things like the waiting room and those things, take precedence from your meeting settings right here. So at this point, you've got your meeting set up, and what I would really recommend that you do is copy this URL. You can right-click on it and copy link address, and then you can go put that in your Schoology classroom so students can click on it and have just a quick one-click spot to start your meeting in the every day for your synchronous sessions. All right, so that is setting up a meeting and your settings on meetings. I'm going to come back and record a separate video for your overall general settings.